Okay, so we talked about classroom management and your agenda and how you got students set up with getting ready to think of ideas for the lesson. So, we'd call that part kind of like the guided practice before you get them started on the independent practice. So I just have a few more questions for you. So the students were definitely, like I said, excited about describing McDonald's. One of the things that you stopped and said, I'm not going to call on you to give your answers if you're not writing. And so I thought that that was a good idea to make sure that the students were not only participating, but they were actually writing things down on the paper as well. So you used something that they were excited about, and you use that in your favor to get students to complete a task. So is that something you do pretty often? Good, good. And then you looked around and you observed that some students hadn't been speaking all day, so you went out of your way to make sure that you included everyone. And so this goes back to what we were saying earlier about how do you get unengaged students kind of in on the lesson. So at that point you stopped and said, I'm going to call on someone who hasn't spoken all day. So you started kind of just choosing particular students to answer, and you knew that they would because it was something that you could obviously tell that they were very excited about. So around 11:07, you came up with about 8 ideas, and you said, now this is something you're going to do with your phones about the Android versus the iPhone later on. And you asked them if they knew what omit means and how to go through the process of omitting something. Most students at this time raised their hands to answer what it means to omit. I think it was a smart idea that you walked them through how to omit certain things about their process, rather than just explaining all 8 things and then letting them go do it on their own. So you were walking them through the octo process, right? The octo process, like one by one, letter by letter, before you just let them go on their own, and then you probably have a lot more questions later. Do you feel like there was any other, I think you kind of mentioned this earlier, are there any other thinking maps that you could have used besides the bubble map?
Yes, you could use a circle map. This is actually a strategy that was recommended by another teacher, and it's not even, they weren't even supposed to do a bubble map. I kind of modified it because I love the thinking maps. It gets them to actually show like a visual and all that. So it was just them writing ideas out, and then, I could omit this and combine that. But I felt that the bubble map helped, I can combine these 2 bubbles together, and that's my main idea. So I modified it, and you could definitely have used a circle map, but I feel that the bubble map is more beneficial towards that type of strategy.
That's good. You definitely have to tailor the lesson to you. You know your students better than anybody else. So even though you might sit down in group meetings and decide that you guys are going to do a circle map, you know your students and how they process information. And so there's definitely nothing wrong with modifying it. Some of the things I was thinking, because obviously very familiar with thinking maps, also is the brace map. Now the brace map might be a little kind of high end for them, with them being 7th grade, but maybe you could start working them toward learning the elements of the brace map. Maybe you could use that later on.
And then also, tomorrow they're making a kind of like a flow chart, so like not part of, but it's already made for them, and it's just like their 3 ideas conclusion.
Yes.
So it's similar to thinking about, not necessarily that kind of thing, but for them to easily.
And then I thought about as well with the flow map, because you're doing a lot of comparisons, and so that was one thing I thought about besides the brace map, is maybe you could do even a multi-flow or flow map to where you're doing comparisons and contrasts. So yeah, good job. I look forward to maybe seeing later on how you start moving them a little higher up on their thinking and higher up in the thinking map process. So just a few more things. Like I said, you constantly pause so that students could understand the expectation about speaking out. And that's something that you have to do. That adds to your classroom management. Luckily, you don't take too much time to do that, or you could probably lose a lot of valuable time. But I think as students saw, as soon as you paused and they saw that you weren't very happy with their shouting out, that they were even encouraging each other to stop and, let's kind of get ourselves together, because you weren't very, very happy. So that's just some things that you have to do. You showed a nice example of stretching their thinking when you suggested they were having a hard time thinking how to combine a few of the things. And you said, I think the logo and Ronald McDonald should go together. And then you asked, does anyone know why I would think that? So that's kind of a critical thinking type of question, because you're leading them to the answer. You're almost scaffolding the thinking, because you're asking them the purpose behind the question. So that goes beyond simple yes or no. That's a very quality question, is why do you think? What's the reasoning there? You're actually getting them to defend your answer. So I'll just end by saying I think students really came alive during this activity. You displayed consistency and diligence by kind of hanging in there with them. Like we said at the beginning of the lesson, it was a little bit of a rough start, but you hung in there with them, you showed diligence and consistency. If you would have gotten frustrated and given up on them, they probably wouldn't have gotten the knowledge that they needed for this process. So this is kind of a common temptation when students get off task, is to give up on them and say, okay, well then you guys go figure it out. But I don't think you gave into that temptation at all. So that definitely shows your perseverance as a teacher. Like I said, for a first year teacher, that's tremendous perseverance, because it means that, you know, going forward next year and in the years to come, you'll even nail it down a little bit better, or a lot better actually. So do you have any questions or comments for me at this time? No? Well, thank you for letting me come and observe your class. I enjoyed it. I look forward to seeing more great things from this class. And good job.
Thank you.
Kiara Nishak and Denasia Hickman to be in the front, please.